Alright, let's work on the play page so it plays through our list of questions. So right now we have a list like this, and it works with anything you type. So we can do ABC. We have 3 items and hit play, and it plays the first one. Then you type in the answer and it skips the next one, and it cycles through. So let's go ahead and show you how to get your questions in the play section. So open up the file called play.html, and this is what you want to add to it. So question, we're going to have a counter here and a form. I'm going to call this my form, no validate. Remember, that's part of HTML's attribute, doesn't have anything to do with AngularJS. ng model, it's going to be our quiz. Quiz h2. And for our answers, we're going to have an input ID called answer, name answer, tab index, so it appears when you tab over is the first thing. And they're going to call this user answer. I'll show you in the controller how to get this working. And we're going to have an option to return to the list of questions. So create. And we're just going to call that link quit and make it an X. So if you load your play section, you see here, it really just shows you the object. So we're going to need to wait to cycle through these items based on the correct user answer. So first let's fix this, because it should be just times. And for this to work through cycle through each question based on the answer, it's going to get a little more complicated. So we're going to go into our controller and create a counter, and then counter is going to count the array. So we're going to have that variable, and then let's go into our controller and create a counter. Scope.counter is the name of the property, and I'm going to set it equal to itself if it already exists, or 0 if it doesn't exist. Okay, let's see if that works. So question 0, and let's add a +1 because since it's array based, it's going to be 0, starting with 0. So we added that +1 to count correctly. And what we're going to do differently here is the quiz, we're not going to do ng repeat directive like we did in the list of questions, because it's going to render them all. You can't render one at a time. With rendering, what I learned with the ng model is you just have to use a pointer like an index. So we're going to call this here counter. So this will be like 1, 2, it's going to count through based on our controller. And the same thing with here. You want to display only what's inside the object. So quiz up the counter is going to represent the index of the object, and we only want the question to show. So if you recall our factory service, we have Q for question, A for answer. So remember Q, we have that only to display the question. Okay, now let's go to our controller, and we're going to add the counter function called increment, and scope, so it's called scope increment counter function and do scope.counter +1. So it's going to increment whenever we create this or initiate this function. So let's set up a location where we can call it. We'll just set up a temporary button with an ng click of increment counter. Let's call it next. Okay, so we'll just save this, and I just want to go back here to create a second vise so we can work with something instead of just adding new input all the time. 1 + 1 is 2. So refresh. There we go. So question 1, counter variable is working. Are you ready? It's showing the question from the first object in the array. And now this, remember, set to cycle through the object. So right now we have next increment counter, and it's incrementing, but since we only have 2 elements, we have to make sure it recycles and starts itself from the beginning again. So we go back to our increment counter and do an if statement called if scope.counter equals scope.get total. And remember, get total, we created that from here. This is a function. So if it calls it to C -1, meaning that if the counter equals the last object in the array, to start from 0, equals 0. Otherwise, else scope counter plus itself. So save that, see what happens. Oh, something broke in their code. Unexpected token else, so okay, that's right. We didn't open the gator bracket. Save, let's see if it works. There we go. So question 1, are you ready? Next, 1, 2, 1, 2. So there you go, and that is working for us. And the next thing we're going to discuss is how to view the answer. So when you type the answer here, how to get it to know if it's correct or not. So we're going to use a watch object, and watch the next video for the watch object.